Hello, my name is Ibrahim the Sanctuary, and I'm going to read the preface to Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Preface. These pages, which introduce Pedagogy of the Oppressed, result from my observations during 6 years of political exile, observations which has enriched those previously afforded by my educational activities in Brazil. I have encountered both in training courses which analyze the role of conscientizado and in actual experimentation with a truly liberating education, the fear of freedom, discussed in the first chapter of this book. Not infrequently, training course participants call attention to the danger of conscientizado in a way that reveals their own fear of freedom. Critical consciousness, they say, is archaic. Others add that critical consciousness may lead to disorder. Some, however, confess, why deny it? I was afraid of freedom. I am no longer afraid. In one of these discussions, the group was debating whether the conscientizado of men and women to a specific situation of injustice might not lead them to destructive fanaticism or to a sensation of total collapse of their world. In the midst of the argument, a person who had previously been a factory worker for many years spoke out. Perhaps I am the only one here of working class origin. I can't say that I've understood everything you've said just now, but I can say one thing. When I began this course, I was naive, and when I found out how naive I was, I started to get critical. But this discovery hasn't made me a fanatic, and I don't feel any collapse either. Doubt regarding the possible effects of conscientizado implies a premise where the doubter does not always make it explicit. It is better for the victims of injustice to recognize themselves as such. In fact, however, conscientizado does not lead the people to destructive fanaticism. On the contrary, by making it possible for people to enter the historical process as responsible subjects, conscientizado enrolls them in the self-for-self affirmation and thus avoids fanaticism. The awakening of critical consciousness leads the way to the expression of social disconnects, precisely because these disconnects are real components of an oppressive situation. Fear of freedom, of which its possessor is not necessarily aware, makes him see ghosts. Such as individuals actually taking refuge in an attempt to achieve security, which he or she prefers to the risk of liberty. As Hegel testifies, it is solely by risking life that freedom is obtained. The individual who has not staked his or her life may no doubt be recognized as a person, but he or she has not attained the truth of this recognition as an independent self-consciousness. Men and women rarely admit their fear of freedom openly, however, tending rather to camouflage it, sometimes unconsciously, by presenting themselves as defenders of freedom. They give their doubts and misgivings an air of profound sobriety, as benefited custodians of freedom.